Marketing was love at first hand experience. Going to Achimota was so transformational for me. It was so eye-opening. There is a certain encouragement to become a whole person and not just academia. But just because of the social class that they grew up in, their knowings, their mannerisms, their interests, their tastes, their preferences, even the way they spoke English, right? You got, as early as when I was probably about 11, I was teaching Sunday school. Right? Of all the three that I was looking at, being a teacher, being a journalist and lawyer, the one that I was most passionate about was being a consult is not for the weak-hearted. It's not for the faint-hearted or the weak-willed. You have to remember people who help you along the way. You have to remember, they're vessels, but you have to remember and be grateful. Achimota School is very formative. KNUST enabled me to develop more, in terms of all the things that I did. Melbourne Business School changed my life.
Hello and welcome to Building Legacy with Nachi podcast. This is a podcast where we have genuine conversations with incredible African Australians who are doing amazing things here in the diaspora. On today's segment, I have with me one of those such incredible, remarkable people, and I am very honored to have him joining me today. He is no other person than Dr. Samuelson Appau. So I will give a brief intro about Dr. Appau so that we can get to know more about him and what he's been up to in Australia. Dr. Samuelson Appau is an associate professor at the Melbourne Business School. So it's under the University of Melbourne, the #1 school in Australia, and I think number 19 globally. So he's a catch. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Appau. I really appreciate you coming here today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, Sam is fine.
All right, Sam. Remember Sam. Okay, we'll do Sam. All right, Sam. So my first question always to guests on the podcast here is, what does legacy mean to you? When we say legacy, in your own way, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's what you're known for and what you be remembered for, in its essence. So that's basically what it is in terms of what your legacy is. I think typically we assume more for what you would be known for after you're no longer around.
Yeah.
But I think legacy also exists even while you're still around in terms of, but it has a past tense to it. So it could be a legacy at your former job, your legacy at somewhere where you live, and so on. It's for some interesting reason it really is about what you're known to be doing now. Typically that would be reputation or brand, or legacy tends to be in the past. So what you've been known to have done, or you're known to have done.
Like the impact you've created.
Typically, yes, and that obviously unpacks in terms of the impact you've had, or people, the influence you've had, or things that you achieved, or just by being, the stories that you left behind. And so sometimes it can be all the mighty great things that would go into the CV and the record books, but it could also be just the weird stories that people might talk about. Like, remember when he did this, remember when she said this, that those sort of like more qualitative memory making experiences that people have with their engagement with you, I think. So all of that thing,
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. So I want to really get to know who Sam is. When we said Sam, before you became Dr. Appau, can we go back? Who was young Sam? What was it like? What was life like for young Sam?
It's a broad question, but I grew up in many places, mostly in Accra. So I'm from the Bonafu region. I was born somewhere in Granta, and then I grew up with my mom a bit, and then with my dad later as well in Accra. So I spent time between my parents in there, and then I ended up in boarding school for a bit.
High school?
No, this was primary school, maybe much earlier.
Were your parents still together?
No, my parents were never together. But so I spent some time in boarding school, and then my dad took me out, and then I went to live in a church mission house because my dad had become a pastor, and so I think I spent most of my formative years there from 11 until 20. I think I was there. I spent most of the time there, so that was quite formative as well. Growing up in a church environment.
What church was that?
Yeah, it's a Pentecostal church.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was interesting to grow up in that environment. So, but my dad was transferred, I think, a few months after I moved there with him. So it was mostly just myself living with, in this environment. Yeah. So it was.
So he left you there.
Yeah.
Did you have anyone taking care of you?
So we just the community of like other pastors and church workers, and some really incredible human beings that just poured into you and liked what you are and just supported you. So I always have this sense that I'm very communally raised in terms of like multiple people along the line that just contributed to sort of like my upbringing and along the way. Yeah. And so and then of course from when I was 20 onwards, like more or less, yes, I would go and visit my dad a bit, with my mom a bit, but then I was more or less on my own.
Did you ever visit mom during these formative years, 11 to 20?
No, actually. So that's
so 11 to 20?
Yeah, mom came to visit, so just a complex story for another day. But yeah, it didn't happen. But we would see each other, especially when I went to university in Kumasi. I went to KNUST. So it was that. So in terms of schooling, I think I started off at Harrow International.
Where is that?
This is in Abeka.
Okay. Accra.
Yeah. That was when I was with my dad for a bit. Then I went up to my mom in Kintampo, where I was. My mom still lives there. And then I went to school there. It's called MPS, Modern Preparatory School, I think is what it is. I went to school there for, I think,
all the MPS people. Is it still there?
It is still there. It's
you
still
have
there.
your big person rep in here.
Yeah, somebody. Yeah.
No,
there are people actually. So I think there are actually a couple of people here in Melbourne who went there.
Yeah. Were they in the same grade as you?
No. You probably also Matthias.
Yeah,
Matthias went to MPS and his wife as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we're from the same. They're all from Kintampo as well.
But different year groups.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know them then. They were much. But yeah, they also went. So I went there for I think a year or two, and then my mom at the time was just a single mother and just me is juggling. So.
Did you have any siblings?
So my siblings will come along later. Okay. So up until all of this time when I was probably 9 or something. And then so I did have a sister on my dad's side, and so yes I did, but I didn't really know her. I'll come to know her a bit later, and then I think then my sister, who is here now, was born I think when I was about almost 10 years old, so not much older than her. But yeah, because my mom then remarried, but then married, I should say.
She was never married to you.
No, never before. So then I went off to boarding school because I think my grandmother thought it was better. My uncles were going there. So this was Datus.
Which boarding? Wait, is it high school?
No, this was primary school.
Still primary?
Yeah.
So most of your formative years, boarding school?
Yeah, you might say that, or probably in sort of like those kind of environments, okay. So I went to Datus, and then of course later my dad took me. So when I lived in the mission house, I finished primary school there, and then I did junior high in Kaswa. There's a school there that I went to that most of the kids from the mission house also went to. I went to that one, and then when I finished, I went to Achimota.
I was going to ask you which high school.
Yeah. Then I went to Achimota after that. Again through the influence of my best friends from junior high, who were like, oh, let's all go to Achimota. So,
did you have any preference, or you were like, oh, whatever?
Before I thought I was going to go to like Adisedo,
You look like I'm a disco guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
don't know
didn't
what that is. But thank God I didn't go to
Really?
I know they'll come for me, but yeah. I know they'll come for me for saying that, but yeah. So because my uncle went there.
Okay.
Like a couple of my uncles went there, and
They didn't turn out. They did turn out.
oh no, they turned out well. No, they did. I mean, my uncle is doing well. No, they did, but so that was there, and then there was also, and then I think I had like an older mentor who was my dad's friend who thought it would be good, or at least I should go to Mfantsipim as an option. But then when I met my friends and they were like, let's go to Achimota. Achimota is like the best. Motown, yeah. Motown is the age, they sold it to me, and I'm like, yeah.
And you believe them?
Yeah.
I think it was the age at that time.
It still is.
Yeah.
It still
I
is.
don't know about
it still
now.
is. Achimota is still like the best school in Ghana, and I should say it was my best schooling experience.
Okay.
Going to Achimota was so transformational for me. It was so eye-opening. It changed. It was tremendous. It's if I don't know if you read Tom Brown's School Days, but it was like that for me. Like just going to Achimota School was just like phenomenal. Like really.
What are some of the things you?
I think it was just the people that you get to meet. Achimota School,
It's
kids,
a mixed school, yeah.
It is a mixed school, but the kids from there, you get a mix of everything, right? You get, people whose parents are hustlers like me. You have, the DBs, the minister's kids, the very famous pastor's kids, like wealthy kids.
So there's
from
a
wealthy
mix
homes.
of
There's a mix of everybody coming from there. But what it does is that it exposes you to those worlds that they live in, that you had no idea. This notion of like kids going to school, like going on vacation overseas, like when they're in school, it's like, you did what?
Like, that's so true. Like in my head, when you hear people going overseas, it's something you think only older people do.
Yeah.
My dad was he's the number one person I knew was overseas. In my head, I'm like, you have to finish school, you have to work, and you have to do.
And these kids were just, but also like, the sociologists call us habitus, but just because of the social class that they grew up in, their knowings, their mannerisms, their interests, their tastes, their preferences, even the way they spoke English, right? You got,
The grammar is different.
Yeah, we used to call it Lafa, locally acquired foreign accent. Like these kids were like
It reminds me of high school.
These kids were different, So what it does is that it gives you that exposure in terms of that's like, oh wow, that could be possible. That's something that is done. You learn these ways of, and then you also imagine. So like there were a number of kids in my class who like all our hope was on, already what's your like was these kids were just studying SAT.
Sad.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I know.
So whilst we were just giving, I know like one of the guys who actually missed like physics, that like was the physics paper or chemistry, one of them
to go right
because it was clashing with his SAT exams. That's how much it is. So when we finished, we were going to take our results, and we're like, oh, maybe KNUS2 University of Ghana will give me a shot. They were already gone.
Oh,
they were gone, right? Because like results come out in like August, and that's when the American school starts, right? So they were gone. They were already gone. And
they weren't even thinking of KNUS, Tech, Cape Coast.
That's for Kwaku Brookman and his children. But we thought we were going to the Kumerica Harbour.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
This
is the Kumerica Harbour. These kids were actually trying out for their actual American Harvard. So I think that sort of like, those exposure. But an Achimota School is also really special in terms of as a school, and there is a certain encouragement to become a whole person and not just academia. So I think if we ever win math and science quiz, it's a miracle. We won just twice because we have exceptional kids that come along. But I see why we've done, because the way Achimota School is built is that it tries to develop your interest in multiple things.
So holistically.
Yes, so it's not just the academia, it's not just like the books, the grades. No. So Achimota's got everything, right? So like we did all of I learned about cricket because I went to Achimota School because we played cricket. Like every term there was sports that was on, so there was a term that was like just athletics. And we did all like, the long jump, the shot put, the discus, the javelin, all of those things. And then we had hockey, handball, cricket as well.
Cricket, I think the first time I had cricket was.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we actually play inter-house cricket.
Oh wow.
We do that, and it's that. And then we had like all the other things, including like the different clubs. So I was in the drama club. I was in the debate club, the library club.
Every club.
And then we had, those were the ones that I did. But there was like a United Nations Student Association club, all of that, the Scrabble club. And then people were encouraged to join the choir. They always tell you about the myth of how Rollins was able to get Kunedu through the choir, because it's all of these myths, because both of them better than Achimota School, right? Media, so rest in peace, Nana Kunedu just passed. So it was all of these things, this encouragement to engage in this. It was almost like weird in Achimota School if you just didn't do anything. We're also encouraged, especially with the entertainment stuff that we did. So we do different things in entertainment, including entertainment wasn't just go and watch movies. Like we do a lot of talent shows and a lot of things that kids were encouraged to do. So, because everyone would often talk about somebody like Reggie Rockstone, who went to Achimota as an example.
Oh, you guys have got a lot of
Reggie Rockstone, John Dumello. It's just one of those places where you would find everybody doing everything, right? And so even like the visual arts student had their thing that they did and was encouraged, MKOGH. All these kids just came through and they were strongly encouraged, to build it. And we had a thing where we call Mo Fiesta, which is just like the students putting together like a big festival on campus, and then we go
inviting others.
Yeah, so we go on sponsored walk throughout where you try to raise money, and then we brought in like we had a haunted house. You had like a variety show where we brought kids from other school to perform.
Which year was this?
Like what was there? Like, but historically, Achimota School had all of these things. So I guess what it is that if you were into the art, if you like performance, you're very academic. I know kids who are in the colleagues who are in the military now, because our cadet was like built really seriously. Like whatever it is that you like doing, and we encourage it. We loved it. I remember like Irene Logan when she won the one that she and Irene and Jane Efia, they did. I think I remember the competition that it was, but both of them competed. And Irene won and Efia came second, and they came together to form a duo called Irene and Jane.
Is it the musicians?
Yeah. I remember.
So are they both from Achimota?
No, Efia did, but Efia went to Yasa too. I think Irene went to Achimota. And I remember, like for example, when she won, she came to perform. We invited her to perform at our night lessons and Carol's night, for example. But she was the choir before, and things like that. There's another example that, like even beauty pageants. That's like a thing. We did it on campus and it flew on. So lots of the girls would go and do that. So I remember in my year, Hamamat Montia won Miss Ghana or Miss Malike, one of them, but she was 1 year ahead of me. And so things like that. I think that's the thing that made Achimota School really special. So when you finished, yes, you would get good grades, but you were broadened.
Yeah.
And so you would find, and again, we had boys and girls. So this realistic way of actually living and being able to coexist.
I always say this, that in my next life, I'll probably go to a mixed school.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Sex school.
Yeah, it was good. We used to do this even during the movie. We used to do this thing called house tourism. So basically, you get to visit other houses. Obviously, boys will go to the girls. So just show the best of your house, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you pay to go. And it was a way of raising money. Yeah.
Your SLC must have been very good.
No. This is like that's what I mean. Like that's what I mean. And so you got to be the like you got to expand your horizon in terms of the different things that you could do. So the people, the connections, but just the school and the environment that it created, it was just, yeah. And when you went in there, they just told you, just gave you a list of the presidents of Ghana from Kwame Nkrumah to, Atta Mills, who was the last
Oh my
Achimota,
gosh,
who
you
would just
guys.
run the country, right? So, and you do these events and you see all of these ministers, and
But it does something.
it does something
It
to
does
you.
something
It really,
to
like,
you,
there's a spirit
Mhm.
in that school. So I know, like, people just would say, but being in there was quite something special in terms of the exposure that he gave you. And so for me, it was very transformational, because if I look at the background that I've told you, especially growing up in a very churchy
Different,
environment, and then just to go in there, like, I was exposed to hip hop music for the first time when I went there, because like these kids were all into it. So yeah, sorry, I've gone on for a bit, but basically
No, I love that. I really love that.
that was for me too. Yeah.
What course did you do in high
I was
school?
an art student, so I did literature,
Art student.
history, government. Yeah, so I was an art student.
So at what point? Because you're a business
Yeah,
professor now.
yeah.
Did you always know what you wanted to be in future? And what was it?
It kept changing because of influence from other people. So when I started off, I just knew I had this creative but oral aspect. God blesses everybody with different things, but I just knew that I had that. I like to read. I like to read, and through influence from my friends, I love to write. So I was writing novels and poems even when I was in junior high. But I read a lot. I loved books. I liked how much you could go into a different world just by disappearing into a book. So I could just be sitting here, but I could pick a book and I would just disappear into another world. So I just loved books. So when it started off, I thought I'll do something in that space. Early on, because my dad was a teacher before he became a pastor,
Really?
I always thought that I wanted to be a teacher. That was one of my early aspirations. And so, but of course, in Ghana, being a teacher doesn't pay. So I remember my own teacher in junior high was like, why would you want to be a teacher?
So
You're
that's
such
what
a
you
bright-"
said.
Yeah,
Okay.
in those essays.
In those days.
I mean, when you're much younger in primary school, everybody wants to be a nurse or a doctor, like a doctor, a lawyer, and all that.
pharmacist, yeah.
But when you
wanted to be a teacher.
yeah, and
Oh.
so my teacher was no, I don't think you're a bright kid.
So even your teacher thought.
My teacher was like, you're a bright kid. Why would you
Why
want to
would
be
you?
a teacher? I think you can do other things. You can be a doctor or something. But if you wanted to be a teacher, then you should be a lecturer, like a university lecturer.
That's what he said.
Much more. So that was the first time that like what I ended up being was planted in my head. But this conscious, like being able to see this influence will come later. And then down the line, then I wanted to be a journalist. Because especially as my love for writing developed. And I did explore that, right?
I think you worked with Focus FM.
I did, yeah. I worked with Focus FM and Ash FM. So I did, and I hosted their morning show and later on the community work. So this was in university, and so this was probably period of what I went to university a year earlier. So this is what's it's 18 to 22.
How did you get in? Like you were still in uni.
Okay, so with Focus FM, that was the uni's
Okay.
radio station. So basically, I hounded them till they let me in, because I would turn up and go like, I want to be in there, and they would go like, go away. You had to know somebody, and so I would just chase up these people who were hosts, wait outside, and go like, I really want to do this, and all of that.
Where did you learn that from? That courage? Because not many Ghanaian 18, 19-year-olds.
I don't know. It's a very good thing. I don't know if it's just comes naturally or just because of the environments that I grew up in, that I felt that if you needed something, you had to just push for it. I don't know, but I just knew that if you wanted something, then no one owes you a favor, and you have to. And I think maybe it helps not to grow, because I didn't grow up with my parents.
So you had to.
Yeah.
Always,
so you learn to.
You learn to find things.
Yeah, because like you come to learn, like no one would give this to you.
Mama, Daddy,
yeah, when you're with your
yeah.
parents, you come to have that level of entitlement, I think. But I think when you're living with other people, you probably learn very quickly that no one will hand anything to you. If you want something, you go and get it.
Yeah.
So that desire to be a journalist was then, like I remember I was just listening to the news. Evans Mensah was my favorite. Like I loved his voice. I know lots of people were Kobla Dumore and Kujo Ponkrum, but I loved Evans Mensah. So like I would actually, when I started using a mobile phone, I would turn on my own mobile phone, and there was this show that he did before the news. I don't remember what it was called. I don't know whatever it is, but I used to practice that and go like, good evening, welcome to this. My name is this, and so I would practice all of those things on my own, and I, sort of like, because I had that desire, and then I went on to the university and I wanted to do, but it didn't work. Then eventually there was this guy who worked at a radio station, and then he came up with this idea of he was going to start a radio course for people who were interested in working at Focus FM to train you on how you could do it. And as soon as I saw it, like, yeah, here's my money. So I did it, and then so he used to do the morning show. So when we finished, he gave me a segment to do the business news, because like the business segment, I'll come and just put together some updates on from business, and then I would read it out because I was a business student. And so I would do that, and then gradually he was like, I was committed because I showed up every time. Very soon people would follow, because the morning show was early in the morning, but I would turn up and I would still do it. So he got to a point, it was like, I see you're really serious, I'll give you the morning news. I think he was like the program manager. So he gave me, because that was also one that nobody wanted, right? The 6 a.m., which means wherever you are, you have to wake up at like 5:30 and to be able to get there. I'm like, yeah, sure. I get to read the news, let's do this. Oh, wow. So I started with that, and then I would pop up and do and Focus FM means you have to produce everything. So you have to put together the news yourself. So and obviously we're just picking from the BBC and my journal line, and then we'll put it together. And
so researching.
Yeah, you research the news yourself, and then you put it together, and then you come and read the news. So I started doing that, and then then he gave me the midday news. So a bit of a promotion. Went very quickly because of the commitment. So I was doing the midday news one afternoon, and then whilst I was doing it, I realized that the head of the station there, who's still, I think he still is, Nana Jantua. Jantua just walked in while I was doing the news and just adjusted the microphone. And it was weird because you're reading and somebody just adjusts the microphone. Anyway, I finished, and then when I finished, somebody was outside. Jantua wants to talk to you. I'm like, I must have done something wrong. That's why this is the end for me. So I went, and he was like, you've got a great voice. Like you've got a great voice for radio. Like, and you did an excellent job. Like, we're really impressed. I've never heard you do this. So I think we would want to, give you more roles. And so it took on from there. Then they gave me the morning show. And then after, later when Philemola, who was doing Community Watch was the biggest show apart from Fela on Fela was the biggest, and the Community Watch, because it was like a political show where you'd have like the rep of Kane NDC and Tesco and NPP
debating,
and then they would debate. So and so I had that. So I'll have Nana B on Nana Boachi, who was NPP, and then Sammy Genfi was Kane secretary. Yeah, so they would often come on the show, but because they were the reps back in the day. But you'd have.
They've been with the parties for.
It starts on campus.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It started on campus. It started on campus. So that's how a lot of the recruitment and sort of the skill set start. Anyway, so that's how I went, and obviously when I finished finally in my final year, I got a Nukes Excellence Award for Best Student Journalist. So that was great. So for a while I harbored that dream. The reason why that didn't happen is a story for another day. If we want to go into it, we could go into it. So that was also happening in parallel. And then I emceed a program that Kenny Japan was at. And just
all of this was during your uni days.
Yes, and then he also was impressed and asked me to go talk to his manager at Ash FM, and so I got a gig there as well.
Wow.
So that's also another story for another day. So I harbored this sort of interest all that while. So that has fast forward. But then I still had a love for teaching. You know, I was like, even in high school, if you talk to my friends from Achimota, they would tell, especially in my history class, I'll be the one who would just go in front of the class and just teach them, because we had a book and I had read ahead, and then when the teacher was out, especially there was lots of strikes during that time as well, I'll teach them. And to an extent that my history teacher, Mr. Gajepo, God bless him, would trust me instead of sometimes when you can come to class, it's like you cover this for me, or I will be late, and so you start. So I always had that. I love literature because of my love of reading, and so again I would even organize my own TA sessions to tutor, like my own tutoring
and
sessions.
Get something wrong.
No, it was a free. Because I just loved it, and then so I did it. Even when I was throughout church, as early as when I was probably about 11, I was teaching Sunday school, right? because I'd read the Bible.
How old were these Sunday school children?
Yeah, they were younger, but sometimes even around my age. But I'd read the Bible, back and forth. And so I knew the stories, but I loved them, and so I could teach. And I had I think even part of what I do today as an academic in terms of being a qualitative researcher, but the way of looking at data and text and interpreting it, a lot of it came early days from like those days with the Bible, reading and interpreting what it means and all of that. So all of those things come.
Yeah.
And then being an art student studying history, government, which is similar to political science, I fell into this debate club of students who typically anybody who did those subjects would go on to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
So, and I was in the debate team. So then I started harboring this desire of also becoming a lawyer.
This was still in high school.
Oh my gosh. So
the dilemma.
Right. So I had that, but you see, you can start to see all of this had to do with talking.
Yeah.
And the
like you're a good storyteller. I'm just listening to I'm enjoying it.
So all of these had to do with sort of like talking. I just knew there was So I was in this group, so my friends, even they would all go on to law school and become lawyers. Andrew Kate, Philip Buffo.
Are you still in touch with all?
Oh yeah. Kate is actually my lawyer in Ghana.
Okay.
So when I do anything related to like Ghana, when I set up my business, he is my guy. Even last time when I was in Ghana, we were hanging out and fooling around. You never stop fooling. That's the thing. And we built that friendship. We both became prefects. And he was school prefect. I was library and deputy prefect.
You will be the library. You just want to go there and keep reading without any obstruction.
Yeah, library and deputy prefect. But Kathy was school prefect during the time in Achimota School. We were about the same height. Now I'm slightly taller than they used to call us mini brothers.
You're slightly taller than Kathy. Okay.
Now I'm slightly taller than Kathy, but we're both very mischievous, even among the prefects group, and we had these really good times. But the notion then was that I would be a lawyer. In fact, there were people from high school who, when we were in KNUST, thought I was a law student because they assumed that I would just go on to become a law student, because all my other friends went on to become lawyer. Like even Philip Buffo, he and I sat together from Form 2, Form 3. He would go on. He is a lawyer now. So that was the expectation. And so when they saw me in my blue, because in KNUST they let the business school students wear blue, and then the law students wear black and white. They call them quality.
I'll come to the business stuff, but I just have a question, or let's say a comment in terms of the journalism, how you got into it. So how did you find out about the program that got you starting in the morning show? Was it because you were always around?
I think I was always around, so I probably chanced on it on one of my visits around the Great Hall or something like that. Yeah. So that's how I came. But I never gave up that hope of doing it. I think of all the three that I was looking at, being a teacher, being a journalist and lawyer, the one that I was most passionate about was being a journalist.
Wow.
Because it was also the one that I thought was much doable and easier and required the least amount of investment coming out of university. Because to be a lawyer, I had to still then finish and go to law school. And my parents didn't want me to be a lawyer. Right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My dad didn't want, my mom didn't want me to be a lawyer.
That's the first
in Ghana, being a lawyer has a bad reputation. At least for some very traditional people, you're a lawyer for they defend their wrong, like criminals,
okay.
and so when they die, they bury them face down because they're going straight
Is
to hell.
that true? Because
I think those are just myths. I think lawyers are great. I remember when I was in high school, I went to this session which was organized by lawyers. And so this is one of the nice things about Achimota School. So basically, those of us kids who were in the debate team but who looked like we would definitely go on to be lawyers, they got us together and took us to this event. And it was actually organized
in
high school, yes. It was actually organized by an Accra, like a former Achimota School student who is a former Miss Ghana and is a lawyer. That's Achimota School for you.
Wow.
And so
the concept of mentorship, like I'm hearing so many things that in my mind, there are things that are just coming up. I wasn't exposed to so many of these things in high school. But is it because Dr. Appau? But no, I think I understand why you keep mentioning Achimota.
Yeah, because when we went to that event, I think the lady had said she had addressed these myths and about being a lawyer. She said, you know what? Even in the Garden of Eden, when God knew what Adam and Eve had done, but he still gave them the opportunity, to speak for themselves. Send them to a proven guilt and ask them, what have you done? To put up a defense for themselves. I thought that was the most fascinating argument for why the legal profession is a divine profession. So the first judge was God.
Of course.
And he recognized the need that regardless of what the evidence seems to be, you need to give people the opportunity to defend themselves. And so, and obviously Adam had a very silly argument. It was the woman you gave to me, right? And the woman said it's a snake. So they kept blaming each other.
But that's so true, because when I was in law school, I remember law school in Legon, there's so many laws and regulations that I just kept going back to the Bible. I'm like, this is in the Bible.
Yeah.
This is literally in the Bible, and we've just used legalese to make it sound. But they are biblical principles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of the laws, most of the regulations are all in the Bible.
Yeah. There's a lot of influence on that in terms of the way it was set up. But so those were and then of course being a lecturer means I had to go and get a PhD, and so it looked, or actually have further studies. So that's why that looked, and then being a journalist was obviously if you have the talent and the skill set, you have the desire, you just go on and do it. So that was the one that I thought I would end up doing. But in the end, it wasn't the one that I ended up doing. And it wasn't for want of trying. It was a door that was closed in front of my face, and then other doors opening. I thought maybe that's just, because I learned also very early on that sometimes God has a way of redirecting you, right? Redirecting you into places, and often the way he does that is he closes the door firmly that you think that's the one I want to enter. And so when you start to appreciate that as the will of God, I think that if you're not religious and listening to it, that's fine, whatever it is that you believe in. But I just find that's often for me been a way of God talking to me as like, no, I think that's better for you. And I've seen that happen many times. Even how I ended up at University was exactly the same. Because all I wanted to do was to go to the University of Ghana Business School. If you go to Achimota, you can see the University of Ghana. It's all I wanted to do. And I got the grades. I knew people that had better grades than that they admitted. But it didn't give me admission. It was shocking. They gave me some social courses. And then KNUST, I applied for law first and business second. And they gave me business. And you think, like, they would give me business they'll give me law because I was an art student. So it's just one of these weird, interesting things that just happens in your life. And I went to KNUST, I was like, my God, this is the place for me. I was always meant to be here. If I hadn't gone to KNUST, it would have been an entirely different story. So I think it was one of those. With the journalism one, when I finished school, I was applying for a number of jobs. And because I was so keen about journalism, I actually met the head of HR for multimedia at a competition. It's called Enactus, by the time it was called SIFE, students in free enterprise, and so I
Was this after high school or
this is university.
Uni.
This is uni.
So you still had journalism in mind.
I was working in the radio station then, so when I met her, and I remember I heard that that's how Kojo Nkrumah got his gig. His year he did SIFE, and then UCC wanted that year, and somebody from Joy, I think probably like the owner, was there and liked his voice and invited him to. So I thought, oh, this is going to be my story too. So the head of HR I met told her, and she actually said, this is my card, reach out to me. And I did. And I remember I made a trip to Accra from Kumasi because I hadn't finished. Because I sent her an email and she said, oh, come on this day and come and meet me. And I took the bus to Accra. I went to the premise at Joy FM. And I told them that I was here to see this woman, and they said, wait, she said she'll be with you. And you would not believe, I spent the whole day there. She didn't come. And in the end, when I went, I kept checking, like, she said he should wait. And so in the evening, I had to go back because I think I had something else I had to do in Kumasi. And didn't say, maybe come back this other time or blah, blah, blah.
Did she ever come out to see you?
No. And I spent the whole day there.
And you kept asking, and you kept saying that she's coming.
Yeah. And I never saw her. But that was, and at the time, then I got other job offers that would come along the line as well. So I thought, I'll just go do that instead. And maybe someday, at some point it'll come around, but, it didn't. So, yeah, it was just one of those ways where I think God closes that door and said, not that. And then, of course, not going to business school in UJ or not going to do law, which was something that because of my parents saying no, don't do it and so on, I didn't. And then I had a mentor who really encouraged me to go to business school. He was one of the pastor's kids. He'd gone to business school himself. He was doing really well. He's actually still a very good mentor of mine now. He's a big man now. So he encouraged me to go to business school.
Because I was going to ask you how you got into business.
Yeah. So that was really.
It wasn't like I wanted to do business.
No. So there was one of the pastor's kids, and he was a business student. He went to business school, and then he went to UGBS. So he encouraged me, but he was that one person who was like, let me look at your grades. Why? At some point, he was really interested in how well I was doing. Even when I finished Achimota Senior, he was the one who came to pick me up. From like with my job box and all of that. He gave me Frank Wood because he was an accounting student, and so I taught myself basic accounting because I'll wake up and I'll just read it and I'll practice accounting myself. So, and I saw how much it made a difference because he was and so let me say it in English just in case but his parents didn't know anybody, but he went to UGBS, got a really good job at Ghana Reinsurance Company. And he'd go on. Now he's like a really big man. I think he's the group chief commercial officer for West African Reinsurance now. But to see him like out of nothing and see how much school, anything I mean for school in Bruno, to see that change. Because then we were there, this guy, his job sent him off overseas. He came back, and then he bought his first car. And we're like,
for what you were?
It is school in the highway, You school, you say. So I got marks and points to Mrs. South Shepherd because when when you're in like primary, junior high, school is just one progress. But once it gets onto the job and you're like, actually, it's the difference between whether you be able to. And so I just saw, and so he was great inspiration. So I thought I'll go to business school then.
That's when you decided to.
That's when I decided to consider business school as an option. That's why I wanted to go to UGBS because he went. I wasn't sure that I would do accounting, but he encouraged me to do accounting. So I just applied and then went to. Then I ended up at KNOC School of Business.
Marketing. How did you come about focus on marketing?
Marketing was love at first hand.
That's the first time I've heard that. Tell me more.
So when you go to business school in Ghana, your first 2 years, they let you do everything, right?
Yeah.
You do
all the 101s.
All the 101s. And so you get a taste of everything, which I think is a really good thing. And then going into your third year, you specialize. And I did all of it. I can show you my transcript. My grades were good. I did well at it. In fact, accounting was some of my highest marks. I did really well on these subjects, except that marketing was just so much fun. And I think in hindsight, it just tapped into the arts, talking, communication, engaging side of me. But marketing was probably the only business subject that has art in addition to the science of it, right? There is or at least to the strategy of it. Business has strategy and processes. But marketing had room for creativity. And I think that's why, marketing is about telling stories and engaging.
Because again, you're a good storyteller. My ears sweet me and it's sweetened me this afternoon.
Yeah, so I think I like that. And marketing enables you. It's also many other business apart from HR and which obviously means managing and like hiring people and managing human resource. Marketing was the other one that actually got you in front of customers, got you talking with them. It's the actual people facing part of it. So I loved that about marketing. So after doing all of those, I didn't know much about marketing because everybody assumes marketing is sales and advertising.
Yeah.
I remember when I decided I was going to specialize in marketing, my mentor was so disappointed. I was like, me now take classic credit in marketing there, don't call me. Or more, no, so don't call me. Now go school, go share marketing. They say, oh yeah, accounting now. And I remember even the guys were truly me that I was a fiero. That because accounting is hard, and all the smart kids, would go and do accounting and finance. But me, I ran with the girls to go and do marketing. So they used to throw me on that. It's like because I had a really good grade, one of the highest CWA. So everybody just thought that I was going to go do accounting because that's typically what happened. But marketing was like, I loved it, and I thrived in it, and so that just built my future. And so when I talk about other job options that I had, getting an offer from Kantar, at the time it was called Millward Brown, which is a brand consulting and market research, global one. The story of how I got that job is another story, but just getting that working in that environment was like, yeah, this is me. This is if I have to be in business, this is going to be it for me. But remember, all this while, that desire to go on and become a lecturer still remain, right? And so, I can talk about how that progressed. But yeah, I ended up in it. I just knew that whatever I did, because I was not going to be a lawyer anymore, journalism seemed to have, fallen by the wayside. I think marketing is my baby now.
So let's come to marketing and lecturing. How you got into that space?
So when I was in, this love of teaching continued. And of course, being at the time, luckily for me, and, being the best student in the marketing class helped because your teachers will remember you, they know you. It was a small class. And so it just came naturally in terms of that. But I remember my lecturers just kept saying to me, you should be a lecturer. So it started reinforcing that thing that I'd heard from but that's something that I'd done that I thought, this thing about teaching. So they kept saying that to me, that you would be a good academic. And so even when I got the job at Kantar, one of my lecturers, who is now one of my best friends, Dr. Kofi Puku, and he used to terrorize us. So like everybody was afraid of that man. He used to terrorize us. When he was the head of department at the time, and he supervised our project work as well. He took a lot of interest in me, and so he advised me about that. And so even when the options came up, my actual national service posting was as a TA, because that's what they do. They grab the best students from each and then let them be TAs.
But did you go ahead to do that?
My uncle. They didn't go. So what happened was that they had offered me the school, at the time, Professor Bylon now, then had actually had a conversation with me about the opportunity of being a TA, and then them supporting me to do my master's and my PhD and becoming a lecturer in the department. So that was an option that they had given to me. at the University School of Business, which is a really wonderful opportunity. And I talked to Dr. Poku about it, and Dr. Poku was like, no, I don't want
but
to
he wasn't.
Yeah, I don't want to be in this environment for many reasons. If you want, I think, I always believe that you'd be a good academic. I think you should do this, but I think you should go overseas for a training and get exposure there. Don't come and do it here. It's better for you. You would see, you understand what I mean. So he encouraged me to then, I'd obviously gone on exchange to Canada while I was in our final year. So going overseas to say it's possible and all of that. Yeah. So he encouraged me, and in fact, some of my application fees he paid to help me on that, and he wrote like reference letters for me. It's like really, yeah. He's still one of my best buddies. Yeah. We hang now. If you see us, we are like boys.
You wouldn't say he was your lecturer.
He's like a father to me.
Nice.
Even his daughter was like, "It's strange that you and my dad are still friends after all these years." But yeah, and so he encouraged me to do it. And so when the job offer at Cantor came, he said, go do that instead. Don't come and do the TA. Because being a TA is good, but it's much helpful for you, for your application, to show that you work in a global firm, and a global firm that does market research and brand consulting, I think. But it's also good for you to get some industry exposure. If you stay here, all you're going to do is just be a TA. So he said, go do that instead. So I listened to him. And also mostly because I was afraid of him, right? So
the fear of Mr. Book.
I was afraid of him. Like, if I didn't do it, he would come for me. So it made sense. Like, and the money was good. Like, even that back then, compared to what they were paying us, because they were hiring me as a junior research executive at the time. So that's
right from uni.
So it was a good job, and it was a really good job, because then that's when I started working with, like, Etisala was one of our main client, but Nestle, Unilever, Coca-Cola. We did a number of really nice school projects. The last one that I did before I left was Barclays Bank and so on. But he always told me, keep applying to those schools and don't stay too long
over here
there, because you might do well, you might enjoy the money, you might never go. So I kept applying to schools, and I applied everywhere. And he used to encourage me about not giving up. They call it ComSop when you're applying to schools. I think that was a term. So he always used to tell me, he tell me, now he calls me chairman, but chairman, ComSop is not for the weak-hearted. It's not for the faint-hearted or the weak-willed. I still remember that. When I tell him that, he laughs. He's like, yeah, chairman,
because you get the rejections.
You do. And it's strange. Because, for example, like, one of the ones that surprised me, like, I remember I through one of my friends who went to that school, University of Saskatchewan in Canada, which I thought, it's not a big school, I'll apply there. They didn't even give me admission.
And they would do something to you, because you're like, I even consider.
Yeah, like, hey, this school wouldn't even look at me, right? But eventually, like, University of Melbourne came along, which in and of itself is another miracle story. But yeah, it came along. They offered me a PhD, and I came to do it.
I was gonna ask, because usually when you hear people doing PhD, it's after masters.
Yes.
So how did you skip that step? Or they offer you masters and PhD?
Grace.
Okay, please tell me so that I can tap into that.
That's why my son is quadrum. Yeah. It's grace.
Did your work experience help as well?
It did when it came down. But basically what had happened is, I'll tell you the story. So because I wanted to go to the US and Canada, particularly Canada was where I went, because I had been there. I needed to GMAT. And so when I was going to write my GMAT, and actually, let me actually tell this story well. So the first GMAT text that I went to write, they were just about to change the GMAT format. And I was like, I know this old format. Yeah. This new one looks like to be harder. Let me just go and write it quickly. So I didn't really prepare, and I just went to write it. And it was a bomb. It wasn't too bad, but I just didn't get, the scores. I think I got like 530, and I think I needed 550. But still, it was disappointing. And there's always a hit to your ego, right? When you're so used to doing things and getting good results, and then you get that. So I was quite disappointed at the time, but that drove me to feel like, okay, actually, I need to take a GMAT class that will teach me about this new system and just really work at it. So it was when I went to do my GMAT classes that my GMAT teacher, because Yanane, I think he still runs the
You
business.
remember all the
Yeah, you have to remember people who help you along the way.
Mm.
You have to remember, they're vessels, but you have to remember and be grateful. So Yanane was one who said to me, your grades are really good. If you went to Australia, you really need GMAT. I'm like, Australia?
Like I
know Australia. I love tennis. I watched the Australian Open.
But it was like
Australia there. Why would I want to go to Australia? So he sold Australia to me. So when I started applying to school to Australia, it was just a pragmatic decision. I was just hedging my bet. You have nothing to lose. Just apply to it. Because Germany cry, I apply. So why not Australia? Which is an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
And so I literally just went online and just searched universities in Australia. And University of Melbourne is number one, so it shows at the top. So I just searched University of Melbourne Business School. And it took me to the Melbourne Business School because there are two business schools at the University of Melbourne, right?
Oh, really?
The Faculty of Business and Economics, and then the Melbourne Business School, which is the graduate business school. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So if I had searched it any other way, it would probably have taken me to the other
faculty. Yeah.
But because of the way I searched it, it took me to MBS. So I did what I'd always done and what Kofi Poku had also advised me to always do. And so I looked at the faculty and then I just looked at the ones who did research that were of interest to me. And I just sent an email, a personalized email. This is me, this is what I'm interested in, this is how I think it aligns with what you do, which is something I think I still advise people in terms of if you're looking for a potential PhD. And I know these days people use ChatGPT to do it, but you can read between, you can see when it's not authentic and you can see when it's genuine. So my supervisor, who is now my colleague, Professor Joe Klein, responded and said, sure, thanks for your impressive email, but this is not, the research that you want to do is not the kind of research, the core area of interest of mine. This is what I'm more interested in. Here is a paper of mine. So I read the paper, and then I came back to it like, this is an interesting paper. Here are my thoughts about it. But these are the ways in which you could do this kind of research in Ghana with all of these other things. So I basically came back to her, and she was like, okay, you sort of like, I'll supervise you to do this kind of research that you're talking about, if you're willing to do it this way. And I'm quite sure. So then we started the application process. But
so you reached out even before applying?
Yeah.
Is that how we usually do it?
Oh, that's how you should do it.
That's how.
Yeah. Oh, well, most universities actually for PhDs require that you have a supervisor, somebody who's agreed, and evidence of that anyway. But even I didn't know that. Just that, I just had Kofi Poku had told me that that's what you should do.
The importance of mentorship.
Oh,
that's what I'm taking from your slide. The importance of mentorship, relationships, friendships.
Just the people along the way, just people you meet who just go, maybe we should do this. Just makes all the difference. For me, that's just been one of the most important things that I've learned. That's why I treasure people like that that come along the way. But anyway, so she did that, and so we started the process. And at the time, I met the grade requirement to get in, but they said at the time the University of Melbourne does not really recognize K University or University from Ghana. So
do they even?
Not then. I don't think they would say that now. But this was 2011, and so we're going to discount your grade for scholarship purposes. And then there was something else, and Jill went to war with them. I would come to learn this later. I didn't know that, but Joe went and explained to them why that's not a very appropriate thing, and and so on and so forth. So basically, made a case and really fought to get me. Yeah, behind. I didn't know any of this. So even when I was, and so there was a debate on whether and Joe argued that you could get into a PhD program with an honors degree.
Yeah,
right?
That I know.
Yeah. And so and this was right. And Joe argued that I have a 4-year degree with an honors.
Oh, you did it with honors.
Because that's standard in Ghana. We do a 4-year degree, and the final years. That's why all of our degrees, when you take it up, it has your into bracket HONS. Back in the days, we used to think it was because you were like a first class student or anything. But everybody has it, and that's I came to understand later is because the final year is an honors. That's what we are all required to do the project research. Yeah. So
because with Macquarie, with the degree I did, so commerce and law, but you can opt to do it. So I did the honors.
Yeah.
So it's first class or second class, and there are different things you do under each.
But it's a 3-year degree.
So I did because I did a
Mine
double
was the
degree.
honors. Because you did a double
It's
degree.
5 years.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So double
you
degree.
work hard for yours. But typical business degree is 3 years.
The 3 years, yeah.
Bachelor's, undergrad. So the honors, and so that's the argument that Jill smartly made at the time.
So the fourth year in Ghana is basically project work and all.
Yeah, it's honest. Yes, it is. That's what it is. But we don't actually think of it that way. And so Jill made that argument to them and said, practically as an honest. And
if Jill hadn't made that argument and they came to you, would you have made that argument?
No, it's me. I didn't know. I didn't know. I actually didn't know that. Yeah, and so Jill and our PhD director at that time, Jim Fredrickson, again, who's one of my colleagues, so shout out to Jim as well. So they actually put together this case, and so thankfully the university agreed. But I think it was a challenge for them in terms of, did I come into a master's by research and then go into the PhD when I meet some requirement, or do I go straight into the PhD? So, but the challenge at the time is that I think only domestic students could do a master's by research or an MPhil then. I think it's changed now. But back then that wasn't. So if I had to come, it had to be a PhD. So they weren't sure. So Jill just said to me, fill the application form, but then choose a course. Just send it to us. We'll discuss it and we'll choose whichever one we think it is. So I applied, did everything, but I didn't know which one I'd apply, like what I was going to be, a master's by research or a PhD student. So the process went on even much longer. I think my admission, usually you should get your admission letter by like end of October or November, right? So that you can apply in it, because academic year starts in February, March. Yeah. Mine came in February.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I had given up and I had a few of us from Canada that I was waiting on the scholarship decision because theirs come later. Because there the deadline is usually, if you want to start in the fall in North America, it's around January. And then so by March or so you get your decision, you start in the fall. So I was waiting on that one. So I thought
to start in like August.
Yes, to start in their August. So I was like, if Australia doesn't work out, this one would work out and I would go. And if it doesn't, I still have a good job, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna stick it out.
So you weren't losing?
No. So my opportunity cost, like my what the negotiation people call partner wasn't so bad, right? Yeah. Or my opportunity cost wasn't so bad. But then one day in February, it came. I got to the office on Monday morning and I saw an email from Joe that said, good news, but we are not there yet. You have a letter of an offer letter, but they're starting classes in like 2 weeks and we know you now have to go and get a visa. So hopefully that comes through. But I was so thrilled. And it said probationary PhD. So I wasn't sure what that meant. I just assumed that it's probably a master's and then after 1 year, maybe they move you into a PhD program. So we went through the visa application process and thankfully the visa came
quickly.
So it wasn't too bad. I think it's all a blur now because you keep waiting. But I remember where I was. I was sitting in Trotro.
You always do when you get that.
Yeah, I was sitting in a Trotro with my Nokia Yam phone, and I used to live in Lashibi at the time, and the counter office was in Ridge. Okay. So I was in the Bush Road, somewhere getting towards La Palm.
Were you on your way to work or back?
I was on my way to work in the morning. Until I was on my phone, then I saw an email, and then I opened and my visa had come. That feeling. Like, like you're sitting in the trotro and looking at everybody.
Do you know
my life just changed? Like, do you all know that, like, this is, like, do you all know, like, it was so special. I still remember, like, the goosebumps. I felt cold, like, this chilling effect. I still remember it was just like yesterday. It was so, like, and the nice thing about a PhD, obviously when I got the scholarship, I was way more elated, but because I was worried about applying for the visa and all of that. But it was like, you're not going to pay fees, we'll give you a monthly a stipend,
yeah.
or all of that. So it was great. You see, it's like wonderful. But to get the visa, it's like now I can get that. Because I wasn't sure that it would work out, especially because of how Jill framed it. Jill is always very careful in terms of managing expectations. So I felt like, oh yes, this is possible, but I might not get it. So when the visa came, all of that
just came together.
Yes, I'm gonna go get this money, I'm gonna get this here, I'm gonna live in Australia, I'm gonna chase my dream of actually becoming, and of course, the first person I called was Kofi Puku.
How did he take the news? Tell me.
I remember when I was going to apply for the visa, he said that I shouldn't worry, that we should pray, he even recommended if I could fast. And so he was really great. And of course I told my dad, and later I'll tell my mom, and so the news would diffuse and so on. But that was the story of how that happened. So I came to Australia not knowing fully that I was a PhD student.
But whatever they were going to give to you.
we are coming. I remember my boss at the time, the CEO of them, Sonia, had actually called me into the office and asked me if I was sure that I wanted to give up, because it's like I had a really promising career. If I stayed in the short time that I'd been there, and if I was really sure that I wanted to go, and I said, look, all I'd wanted to do was to become a lecturer. Like at least later on when it became clear to me that this was the path that I was going to pursue, and so this was really great for me. So I think I want to go and pursue this dream. But I was also thinking, security mommy as a scholarship cry, change the cap with the mama
imagine when
this one I'll say it in English. Anyway, so yeah, I did, and then I came, and yeah, the rest is what it was.
I now understand your passion. When I see your LinkedIn post, I'm like, this guy, do you sleep on LinkedIn? But your passion for the Melbourne Business School, I can see. And tell me about it, because I can see you've been doing so much. Like recently, we've got some Ghanaian students, PhD students here. MBA students come here, and I'm sure you had something to do with that. Tell me about your work with Melbourne Business School.
I love MBS. I love Melbourne Business School. I think they love me back. And I've always loved everywhere I'd work. Shout out to RMIT. I loved working at RMIT. They gave me my first job coming out of my PhD. My colleagues there are great. They are still, if I go to conferences, you see me hanging out with my RMIT colleagues. So I need to give a shout out to them, because I love my time there. It was really important for me as well. But MBS, was sort of, as if you think about, Achimota School is very formative. KNUST enabled me to develop more, in terms of all the things that I did. Melbourne Business School changed my life in terms of that's where the growth, in terms of, because that's the career that I'm in, what I do now, the opportunities. I mean, in all of the places that I went, but this Melbourne Business School, and of course my supervisor was so instrumental in getting me in, but gave me a scholarship to come and study. If I didn't get that scholarship, I couldn't have afforded it, right? So it was wonderful to get that opportunity, but also the training was fantastic. Jill, the school, the environment. But speaking about, again, what it was like just being around the people in Achimota School, just being around the professors there, being around those MBA students, being around that school, the way, the thinking, the culture, the approach to work, all of that stuff, it changes you in terms of being in that environment. And even the other PhD colleagues, the University of Melbourne itself, the training that you get there, the opportunities that I got, the mentoring that I got from multiple people in the school, in terms of sitting in classes, watching other people teach, learning from them. Apart from my supervisors, sort of my teaching mentors, Simon Bell, Mark Ritson, sitting in their class, just being able to soak and look at the way they approach this, the way they teach, learning from them. So all of those things were really, really wonderful experiences. Then my other supervisor, Julie Ozan, who like trained me in my core area of research, consumer culture. She is a mother. She is a beast. She is wonderful. It's like in terms of like my as a researcher, she just made me in terms of that. So to be able to have all of those experiences and that training was great. And when you do that, but I also recognize that often I was only one of me there.
Are you the only Ghanaian at the time?
Yes, I'm the only African as well.
African.
Yeah. So at least I was a student and all of that. So I think just going on, I was a PhD student, I meant, but just going on, there was also that need to always contribute and give back and support. And the school encourages you to do that and supports me to do that.
Because I see you doing that a lot.
Yes, and so I'm a 0 or 100 kind of guy. I'm quite intense, and then I'm also very aloof on that. So it's
so you either give your all,
or I'm not going to do it. And if I'm not going to do it, sometimes people might think that maybe I'm very
arrogant,
firm. I don't know if it's, but I'm very like. Because when I don't want to do something and I won't do it, you won't change my mind. But if I want to do something, I don't need your just get out of my way or give me the support that I need. I'll give it all my all, 100%. So I think I love that they let me do that. They support me. So those are things that I'm passionate about. We are from Ghana, and there are many great people and talent, and I recognize that. There's that exposure, those opportunities were really important in helping me get to where I am. So I like to do that. So Blue Nile is one of the ways in which I do that.
Yeah. Did you set up that program yourself?
I helped in that initial beginnings. So if you say set up, yes. If you think about the birth of it, no. The birth of it was actually Hallelujah with Gabriel Selassie and Ben Neville. They were the brains behind it, and then they brought me in to help set it up. And then, of course, it's become my baby since then. And so we continue to run the program, and I love it.
You're nurturing it so well.
Yeah, and now we are trying to build relationship with universities in Ghana. So bringing students from the University of Ghana was one of it, and we're trying to do it reciprocate. So, for example, Jill and I will be coming with me to Ghana next year, to go and do some stuff there in Ghana as well. So looking to build those partnerships and those
amazing
relationships
with UGBS.
Yes, and GIMPA and and I think in Jill's case with UCC as well.
Oh wow. Does she have people there, or that's all through? You are the person.
Oh, she needs. So yes. So it's nice, and look, and I love my job. Yeah. It's a great job, as well. I love teaching. I'd always loved it, but teaching at MBS is also very rewarding because it's the best business school in the country, one of the best in the world. But it means you also attract really good students who are really engaged, doing wonderful things in their lives, and so it's really it's a joy to be in the classroom. But also you get all the support to do the kind of research that you want to do. So it's a great job. It's I'm blessed in that regard. So I love my job. I don't know for others, but for me, this is, having gone through all my journey, this is the best job for me, and also it's enabled me to bring all of those skill sets
together.
Together,
like from teaching, lawyer to
journalism.
Journalism. I feel like you're doing everything.
Exactly.
In this space.
Exactly. So it's all come together. In the end, it's all come together in the end. So often people would ask me, if you were not a lecturer, what would you do? You always get one of those two answers, right? I would have been a lawyer or a journalist. Those are the two things that I would have done. And these days, sometimes I think I could maybe try stand-up comedy, but who am I kidding?
Please, let's just keep that.
That could make you laugh. And
Oh wow!
Never say never.
No, I've enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, my ears suit me, and you're such a great storyteller. You know how to go from point to point, and amazing. But one of the questions I love to ask my guests before they leave is, so 2 questions. You can choose one or answer both. So when you look back 10 years ago, or 10, 20 years, let me say 20 years, what would you tell young Sam 20 years ago in terms of career building, in terms of finding himself? Or the second question is looking forward. So where would you like Sam to be in the next 15, 20 years?
These are like big questions that I think the one about looking back is it's a deep question, and I think whatever answer I give today might change in different circumstances. But I think if I look back in terms of the stuff that I'd done, I think I don't think I have done anything extraordinary. I think I'm doing as well as everybody else is doing in their things that they're looking to do. So and from that perspective, I think that I would say to my younger self, it's good you were committed to the things you're passionate about. I think that's important, you know, but also the things that you were passionate because you were good at and you enjoy doing. So I think that's always good. But also I think it's good that you listen to your mentors and you also found mentors. I've always kept older friends and but it's and I've always enjoyed, like even now at the business school, I have great mentors who continue to, of course, in addition to Joe, you know, Donald Sullivan, you know, and there's a number of people who continue to advise, and I talk to them about different things. I still have my Kofi Puku, you know, Clement is still like you know, my guy from way back. I think another thing that has really been helpful was just the people that, in addition to mentors, but even your friends, when you are with people who love what they're doing, obviously love their family, care about what they do, and they're looking to do great things, or at least better, I think that's infectious. So, you know, people think that, you know, I'm unintentionally, probably intentionally picky with my friends, and it's not that I intentionally pick. It's just that yes, and I think they're drawn to me, and vice versa. So I think just being with them, for example, like since I've been in Australia, you know, if you look at my closest friends, you know, you see that
the similarities,
right? And I think there's something infectious about that. And these are people, like, we all cheering each other on success. You know, we support each other. We're there for we are like family. So in addition to all of those things, I think, and it's the same, like even back in junior high, like I talked about, I don't know if this was recorded, but I talked about the fact that I went to Achimota School because my best friend from junior high said, let's go to Achimota School together, right? So that's there. And when I was in senior high, you know, I mentioned my friends Carter and so on, all of these guys. And then when I was in university, it was the same. And then like Kane Wesley, it's the same. Some of those people I'm still, you know, friends with. You know, I remember I was in Ireland recently. I was just catching up with one of my friends from university, Justice watching. You know, we catch up, and from there, like one of the guys festival, like it continues from then. Those group of people, and then being here in Australia again, those group of people. I think there is maybe someone might say it's a bubble, but I think there's something really nice about that, which is that it helps keep you going. That community of people who like the things that you do and are trying to do the same thing. So I think those would be the things that bridging the gap between the past and the present is those people and those mentors. But I think if it's also looking at the past out, it may sound a bit cliche, but I would say just committing to those things that I liked as well. And you know, hindsight always gives you perspective. So I think I trusted God along that journey. It wasn't always clear, but even as I mature, so now I'm actually more accepting of things. Of course, it hurts when you have a rejection or a disappointment. But I think if you look at the story that I've told you, there was always something that I thought I wanted, and then I got shifted in this direction. Or I thought I was going to go here, or something that was a setback set me on a path that if that didn't happen, and so on. So I think that trust in God and just, you know, working on it is on the path that God puts you on is also really important. Amazing. So I think those would be the sort of takeaways.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I've learned so much. I have to go back to this video and watch it again. The power of mentors, friendships, community, relationships. I'll say this, and I always say this, that I've told my husband, I've told Aaron that one thing I need him to keep pushing to Yui and our children is the importance of building strong relationships, important relationships. That's something that I think if I were to go back in my young years, I would work more on that.
Yeah.
Cherishing the people that God places in your life.
Absolutely.
And just keeping them and doing your best to manage and maintain those friendships and relationships.
Absolutely. It's one of the most profound things that has occurred to, like that I've seen, that there are some people in your life that when you remove them, like just delete them, your life is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Entirely different.
You would have got a different
that fascinates me so much, and so it means that you have deep appreciation for these people, and I think that's exactly that. So good people are some of the there's this notion of wealth in people. I've used it in my research, but I talk about it a lot, that the best thing that you can have is to have wealth in people, which is that you have people for whom you count as a resource, and they count you as a resource. And I think that's one of the best things that you could have. So in all you do, invest wealth in people, because people have the best capabilities to reproduce. So it's contrasted with this notion of building wealth in things like houses, land, and all of that. But people are special, and so just having these people can be there. Like they are your wealth. There's often this joke that your network is your net wealth, but it is true. It is true. It makes all the difference, and so I think getting good people, knowing good people, it makes all the difference. And I could, even God works. God will not come down and do it directly. God works through people. So that's really important. At least for me, when I think about my life, I think I'm doing okay. I think it's just the people that I've just met, that God has just brought down my path. That's my biggest resource, biggest source of wealth. And if you remove any of those people, it's a different thing. And I think if there's any takeaway when I reflect on my own, if you think about legacy or whatever, I think it's that legacy is the legacy of those people.
Wow. Such a great way to end this segment. I wish we could continue. But everything that has a beginning definitely has an end. But thank you so much, Sam. Thank you so much for coming and pouring into us. And like I said, I have to go back and rewatch this video, because there's been so many gems dropped. As I listened to you, I just kept reminiscing of my own past and my journey, and some of the things that I can change, but I can do better now. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys have learned so much from Dr. Appau's or Sam's story and his journey so far, that it is possible. Cherish the mentors in your life. Cherish the friendships in your life. Your relationships, they are your currency. Like they are worth more than money. That's what I believe now, that our relationships and the people around us are really worth more than money, because they can take you places. They can make or break your dreams. Thank you so much for staying with us. And again, thank you so much for Mr. Appau. I will catch you guys in our next interview. I am your host, Nana Nature.